As this profound clearing occurs, you naturally begin to shift into what is known as the observer state. You are no longer the victim of your thoughts and emotions, tossed about on the chaotic seas of your inner world. You become the lighthouse, the stable, silent, unwavering presence that watches the storms pass. You realize that you are not the thoughts, but the awareness of the thoughts. You are not the emotions, but the space in which the emotions arise and fall. In this elevated state of consciousness, a remarkable thing happens. Your perception of time begins to change. The frantic, rushed pace of the 3D world slows down. You experience more space between moments, a greater sense of presence and calm, even amidst external chaos. This is because you're no longer constantly reacting to life from a place of subconscious programming. Instead, you're beginning to consciously create your reality. From the calm center of the observer state, you respond to life with wisdom and intention, rather than reacting with fear and conditioning. You're no longer just a character in the play. You are becoming the conscious author of your own story. To achieve these states of profound inner peace in the silent temple or the meditation cushion is one thing. The true test of your awakening is to remain in this state of conscious observation amidst the unrelenting chaos of the 3D world. How do you hold your center when faced with traffic jams, difficult colleagues, global crises, and the incessant demands of modern life? The mastery is achieved through the moment-to-moment practice of presence, intentional silence, and a deep discernment of the energy you consume. This means consciously choosing to anchor yourself in the present moment through your breath, especially when the world tries to pull you into anxiety about the future or regret about the past. It means carving out moments of intentional silence in your day, turning off the news, putting down the phone to reconnect with the stillness within. And it means becoming acutely aware of the energetic quality of the information, the food, and the company you keep, recognizing that everything you consume either nourishes your core frequency or pollutes it. However, as your consciousness expands and your connection to your true self deepens, the mind, in its desire for self-preservation, sets its final and most cunning trap, the spiritual ego. This is a subtle and insidious distortion of your progress. It's the whisper that tells you that you are now special, enlightened, or somehow superior to others who are still asleep. The spiritual ego takes the profound experiences of your inner journey and turns them into a new, more refined identity. It judges others for being less woke. It compares its spiritual journey to others, creating an invisible ladder of consciousness that it needs to climb. It may even feel a compulsive need to fix or awaken others, not from a place of genuine compassion, but from a need to validate its own spiritual status. This illusion of separation is the final enemy, the ultimate barrier to true liberation. The spiritual ego is a wolf dressed in sheep's clothing, a deception of the highest order, because it disguises itself as spirit. It creates a new form of separation, a subtle us versus them mentality that is the very antithesis of quantum reality. True quantum coherence, the state of ultimate harmony and power, is found not in the pride of a spiritual achievement, but in the humble, profound understanding that all are part of the same unified field. The journey is not about becoming better than anyone else. It is about recognizing the divine spark within every being, no matter how deeply it may be veiled. To overcome this final trap is to realize that the goal was never to become an enlightened person, but to dissolve the person altogether, leaving only the light of pure, unified consciousness. It requires constant vigilance and a radical humility, a willingness to see the ego's tricks and lovingly let them go over and over again. When this final, gossamer thin mask of the spiritual ego dissolves, you arrive at a state of being that can only be described as conscious unity. This is not a concept to be understood, but a reality to be lived. In this state, the deeply ingrained illusion of separation completely collapses. You don't just believe that you are connected to everything, you experience it as a direct, unshakable truth. You realize, with a profound sense of relief and homecoming, that there was never any separation between you and the source of all life. The very idea of a journey back to the source is seen for what it was, a dream of distance. You are not a drop of water seeking to return to the ocean. You are, and always have been, the entire quantum field experiencing itself within the unique vessel of your body. With this ultimate realization, the desperate, lifelong search for answers comes to an end because there are simply no more questions. The restless, seeking for meaning, for purpose, for the next book or teacher that will finally give you the secret, dissolves into the profound peace of simply being. You understand that life itself, in all its chaotic, beautiful, and mundane glory, is the answer. There is nothing to achieve, nowhere to get to. There is only the ever-present miracle of existence, unfolding in the eternal now. In this state of conscious unity, the distinction between the sacred and the mundane vanishes. Every mundane act becomes a sacred ritual, infused with the light of your presence. Breathing, the simple, automatic act of taking in air, becomes a conscious communion with the life force of the universe. Drinking a glass of water is no longer a trivial task. It is the sacred act of receiving the life-giving essence of the cosmos into your being. Washing the dishes, once a chore to be rushed through, becomes a moving meditation. The feeling of the warm water, the sight of the soap bubbles, the simple act of bringing cleanliness and order, all experienced with a profound sense of gratitude and presence. You are no longer waiting for life to begin. You are no longer postponing your peace until you reach some future goal. You are fully, vibrantly present with the miracle of what is, right here, right now. The frantic search is over. You have arrived at the place you never truly left, the sacred, infinite, present moment, the final quantum leap, the ultimate and unshakable remembrance, is the realization of the unspoken truth that lies beyond all words and concepts. You are not the character in the story. You are not the body that ages, the mind that thinks, or the emotions that fluctuate. You are not the pain you have felt, the fear you have faced, or the intricate identity you have worn for a lifetime. These are all experiences passing through you, like clouds passing through the vast, open sky. You are the sky itself. You are the infinite, untouched consciousness that has been silently witnessing your journey all along. This pure awareness, your true self, has never been harmed, never been broken, and never been born or died. It is the eternal, silent witness to the entire cosmic play. A soul that remembers this truth cannot be controlled, manipulated, or imprisoned by any external force or belief system. This is the dawn of absolute freedom. But this is not the ego's definition of freedom. the freedom to do whatever you want, whenever you want. That is still a form of bondage to desire. This is a far deeper liberation, the freedom from being defined by anything at all. You are no longer defined by your past, your successes, your failures, your relationships, or even your spiritual experiences. You are free from the very need to have an identity. The prison doors, which were never truly locked, swing open. You see that all belief systems, no matter how noble or comforting, are ultimately cages for the infinite spirit. You no longer need to cling to any ideology because you have become a living embodiment of the truth. You are no longer a seeker of the light. You are the light itself. The great forgetting is over. The long dream of separation has come to its peaceful conclusion. You are awake. You are free. You are home. The journey we've explored today is not a linear path with a final destination, but a spiral of remembrance, a continual deepening into the truth of who you are. The lesson is not to strive to become something you're not, but to lovingly shed all the layers of who you are not. The advice is to begin where you are. When that next limiting thought arises, simply ask, with gentle curiosity, is this truly mine? That is the starting point. Find moments of silence in your day, not as a chore, but as a gift to yourself, a space to simply be. And practice observing your emotions without judgment, treating them as sacred messengers that are simply passing through. This path requires courage, patience, and a deep compassion for yourself. There will be moments you forget, moments the old programming takes over, and that's okay. The journey is in the gentle, persistent returning, the returning to the breath, the returning to the present moment, the returning to the silent observer within. I leave you with a question to ponder in the quiet moments of your week. If you were to let go of one story you tell about yourself just for a day, what would it be? And what might you discover in the space that story once occupied? Thank you for sharing this space and this time with me. I wish you profound peace, vibrant health, and clarity on your journey. If this message resonated with you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel for more explorations into the heart of consciousness. Your presence here is deeply appreciated. Be well, and remember the silent, unshakable peace that you are. What you need to integrate fully, down to the marrow of your bones, is this: that nonlinear path you've been walking, it wasn't a mistake. Those detours that made no logical sense to your friends or family, they were divinely orchestrated. Those complete, devastating reversals that forced you to abandon everything you'd built: the career, the relationship, the identity. None of it was a random chaos. It was your curriculum. It was a highly specialized, experiential training program designed specifically for you. Think of it this way. If you want to train a deep-sea diver, you don't have them practice in a shallow swimming pool. You subject them to pressure, to darkness, to the challenges of an unpredictable environment. The universe was not punishing you. It was training you for a level of consciousness that requires a fundamentally different skill set. Every moment you felt utterly and hopelessly lost was actually the universe removing a false map from your hands. It was stripping you of reliance on external guidance, so you would be forced to develop your own internal navigation system, your intuition, your energetic discernment. A ship's captain who can only navigate by sight is useless in a fog. You are being trained to navigate by the stars within. Every period of intense isolation, those times when friends fell away, and you felt profoundly alone, was a deliberate act of creating a sacred space. It was a cone of silence to allow you to hear the subtle frequencies that get drowned out in the constant static of social company. You needed to be separated from the well-meaning but limited advice of others, from the pressure to conform, from the ambient noise of a culture that often values conformity over authenticity. Every time you had to question everything you thought you knew about love, about success, about God, about yourself, you were being trained in a form of consciousness that most people never access because they never need it. Their world remains stable, their beliefs unchallenged. They get the comfort of solid ground. You, however, were being prepared for a reality where the ground is not solid, where reality is fluid and responsive to consciousness. This isn't a punishment for something you did wrong. This is the specific, rigorous preparation required for what you're being prepared to do. Group 11 operates on a different developmental track than conventional paths. You don't get the luxury of straightforward, linear progression. You don't get to build one brick upon another on solid ground that never shifts beneath you. Instead, you get initiated through uncertainty. Your strength is forged in the fires of ambiguity. Your faith is built not on external evidence, but on the quiet, resilient knowing that emerges after every anchor you've relied on. Your job, your relationship, your identity, your belief system dissolves simultaneously. The disconnection you felt from others wasn't a flaw in your wiring. It was a feature, not a bug. It was your system refusing to lock into frequencies that would limit your range and cap your potential. The smallness of certain conversations felt suffocating because your consciousness was simultaneously tracking larger, more intricate patterns. The predictability of other people's concerns felt foreign because you were sensing emerging possibilities they couldn't imagine yet. That discomfort wasn't a sign of malfunction. It was your field staying true to its actual frequency instead of compressing itself to fit into smaller, more socially acceptable containers. Every ability you have developed in those lonely spaces of not fitting in is about to become powerfully, undeniably relevant. The defining characteristic, the core initiation, for every member of Group 11 is something I call the Great Dissolution. If you're part of this group, you have already been through it, or you are in it now. It's a period in your timeline, maybe recent, maybe years ago, where your entire constructed identity came apart at the seams, and not gradually, through gentle, conscious evolution. It happened suddenly, catastrophically, like someone pulled a single thread and your whole carefully woven self-concept unraveled in what felt like moments. Everything you thought you knew about who you were, what you wanted, and where you were heading just dissolved into thin air. During that dissolution, you probably questioned your sanity more than once. Nothing that used to motivate you, money, status, achievement, retained its power. Goals that had seemed critically important just months before felt utterly meaningless. Relationships that used to provide a sense of stability and identity suddenly felt exhausting and inauthentic. The very version of yourself that others knew and related to felt like an ill-fitting costume you couldn't stand to wear for another second. You might have looked in the mirror and not recognized the person looking back. You might have wondered if you were experiencing some kind of profound psychological breakdown that no one around you could possibly comprehend or help with. Friends and family likely offered conventional advice. Just get out more, think positive, maybe you need a new hobby. But their language and their frameworks didn't have categories for what was happening to you. It was like trying to explain color to someone who has only ever seen in black and white. What you couldn't understand then, what only becomes crystal clear from this side of the process, is that you weren't breaking down, you were breaking through. That terrifying dissolution wasn't the destruction of something essential, it was the liberation from everything that was covering something essential, your actual self, your core frequency, the authentic being that had been buried under layers of social conditioning, parental expectations, and protective personas, was finally becoming powerful enough to reject everything that wasn't in authentic alignment with it. It was a system-wide purge, clearing the decks for what is real in you to emerge without competition from the constructed identities you had adopted for survival. The profound isolation that often follows that dissolution wasn't evidence that you'd done something wrong or that you were unlovable. It was a necessary and sacred quarantine. You needed distance from the constant, often unconscious, input of others' expectations. You needed silence deep enough to finally hear your own truth without interference. You needed space to feel the magnetic pull of your actual trajectory without the chorus of well-intentioned voices trying to pull you back to the familiar shore they understood. In that quiet, fallow period, something extraordinary was building itself beneath the surface of your daily experience. In those quiet months or years, you were developing what I call quantum sovereignty. This is perhaps the most critical capacity that emerges from the ashes of the dissolution. It is the unshakable ability to trust your own knowing, even when, and especially when, it directly contradicts consensus reality. It's the strength to stand in your truth when standing alone is the only option, without experiencing that solitude as abandonment or failure. It's the profound, embodied strength to choose authenticity over approval, to choose growth over security, and to choose alignment with your actual frequency over the fleeting comfort of familiar but limiting frequencies. Most people never develop this level of inner authority because their lives never demand it. They navigate their existence supported by a scaffold of external validation, the approval of their parents, the agreement of their social circle, the endorsement of cultural norms. Their sense of rightness is outsourced, but Group 11 consciousness is required to build a completely different foundation, one sunk deep into the bedrock of the self. You've had to learn to trust the voice inside you that doesn't shout but never lies, that subtle, quiet knowing that speaks in whispers, in physical sensations, in a gentle sense of rightness or wrongness, rather than in loud, egoic certainties. And now, you're beginning to see the tangible results of that arduous process manifesting in your external reality in ways that are becoming impossible to dismiss as mere coincidence. When you speak from this place of integrated inner knowing, people respond differently. They listen more deeply. They stop arguing and start asking questions. When you make decisions from this centered space, instead of from old patterns of seeking approval or avoiding conflict, doors that used to be stubbornly closed begin to open, seemingly on their own. When you simply show up as this more authentic version of yourself, Opportunities appear that seem almost impossibly well timed and perfectly suited to you, as if reality itself is responding to your newfound coherence. This is the observable effect of completing the Group 11 initiation. The world starts reflecting your internal state differently because you are broadcasting from a fundamentally different, clearer, and more powerful frequency. You are no longer desperately seeking validation outside yourself or trying to compress your expansive awareness into boxes that were never designed for your actual shape. You are creating from your core frequency, and that frequency has magnetic properties you're only now beginning to discover. Things, people, and circumstances that align with it move toward you with a sense of grace and ease. Things that don't align simply fall away, often with less friction and drama than ever before. Your intuition, once a series of occasional flashes or vague hunches, has sharpened to the point where it's no longer an intermittent event, but a constant, subtle stream of guidance. You can sense the energy beneath people's words before they even finish their sentences. You feel the discord between a person's cheerful tone and the grief they're carrying in their field. You feel truth and deception in situations before your logical mind has had a chance to analyze the facts. You find yourself knowing things you have no rational basis for knowing, understanding the hidden dynamics in a family, sensing the true motivation behind a business proposal. This isn't a mystical superpower reserved for a chosen few. This is the natural, predictable result of spending an extended period of time in a deep, committed relationship with your own inner guidance system. It's what happens when that relationship becomes your primary navigation tool, trusted above all external sources. But perhaps the most remarkable and validating shift in this phase is how effortless certain manifestations are becoming. Goals that you used to have to grind and push and force into existence now seem to unfold with a surprising, almost magical ease. People who are perfectly aligned with your purpose or your next step materialize in your life as if responding to an invisible summons. Resources, connections, and opportunities flow toward you in patterns that would look meticulously orchestrated if you tried to plan them, but which emerge organically from your new state of coherence. Let me be clear. This is not the result of luck or actor positive thinking in the superficial sense. This is alignment. This is the physics of consciousness. This is what happens when you finally stop swimming against the current of your own nature and allow yourself to be carried by the powerful river of your authentic path. Everything that felt impossibly difficult when you were trying to be someone you were not becomes surprisingly manageable when you are simply operating as who you actually are. The friction decreases dramatically, not because the external circumstances have necessarily changed, but because you are now moving in harmony with your own design instead of against it. As you stabilize in this new frequency, you will notice a great reorganization happening in every area of your life. The relationships in your life are recalibrating themselves around this new, more authentic signal you're emitting. People who couldn't understand your process, who judged your dissolution as a failure or a crisis, are either naturally and gently falling away, or they are suddenly developing an unexpected respect for the profound transformation they are now witnessing in you. Meanwhile, new connections are forming with an astonishing speed and depth. You are meeting people who speak your language fluently, who understand your complex references without needing a lengthy explanation, who can meet your depth and intensity without feeling threatened or overwhelmed by it. You are discovering, perhaps for the first time, that authentic relating doesn't require the constant, exhausting translation you've been doing your whole life. You can just be yourself and be met. You are also discovering capacities you didn't know you possessed, not necessarily in dramatic, movie-like ways, though that's possible too, but in the subtle, powerful way your mere presence seems to create a pocket of calm in anxious people, in the way that people who feel hopeless seem to feel a flicker of possibility around you, without you saying anything specific, in the way people who have been operating on autopilot their whole lives suddenly wake up to something dormant in themselves when they spend time in your field. This isn't about being special or superior. This is about your system finally functioning at its designed frequency, and that coherent frequency having palpable, harmonizing effects on other energetic fields it encounters. This speaks to the emerging purpose of Group 11. We are the frequency bridgers, the ones who go first into the uncharted territory of a new consciousness, not with a map, but with a compass, so that others, when they are ready, can follow the energetic trail you are now blazing. Your professional life is likely undergoing a similar seismic shift. You've been feeling restless, sensing that what you're currently doing for work is no longer aligned with where you're headed. A job that once felt secure and meaningful now feels suffocating. A career path you meticulously built now feels like a cage. This restlessness isn't dissatisfaction in the usual sense. It's dissonance. Your frequency has shifted, and your external circumstances haven't caught up yet. You are literally vibrating at a different rate than your current reality. The key here is learning to listen with nuance. Sometimes, this dissonance is a clear call for external action, to leave the job, to start the new venture, but other times, the transformation required is internal, and the external circumstances will shift naturally as a result without you having to force a single thing. Learning to feel the difference between the restlessness that calls you to move and the restlessness that calls you to deepen your presence right where you are becomes one of your most important skills. As you move forward from this point of recognition, everything is about to make a new kind of sense, not because life becomes simple or free of challenges, but because you are now equipped to navigate it from a place of deep inner knowing instead of from external guidance and approval seeking. The scattered, incomprehensible pieces of your life's puzzle are reorganizing themselves into a coherent image that you can finally see with clarity. You are stepping out of a long, disorienting winter and into the first warm days of a spring you weren't sure would ever arrive. The work now is not about striving, but about allowing. It's about trusting the shifts that are happening. It's about continuing to choose authenticity over comfort. It's about having the courage to let go of the last remnants of who you were, to make space for the fullness of who you are becoming. Your journey through the confusion and the fire of dissolution wasn't just about your personal growth. It was a preparation for a function that requires profound inner stability, unshakable sovereignty, and the kind of authentic presence that gives others silent permission to access their own authenticity without you ever having to teach, preach, or convince them of anything. You are the living embodiment of the path. Your job is not to talk about the transformation, but to be the transformation. Your presence is your purpose. The frequency you hold is your greatest contribution. So, take a deep breath. Feel these words settle within you. Let the recognition wash over you, not as new information, but as a deep and resonant confirmation of a truth you have always carried. The most confusing, painful, and isolating parts of your journey were, in fact, the most sacred. They were the crucible in which your true self was forged. The journey from here is one of embodiment. It's about taking this understanding from the conceptual to the practical, living it in every choice, every interaction, every breath. It's about learning to trust the effortless flow that emerges from your coherence and having the courage to follow where it leads, even when it defies logic. The world doesn't need more people who have all the answers. It needs people who can hold steady in the face of uncertainty, who can navigate without maps, and who can see the seeds of new possibilities in what looks to others like an ending. This is who you have been trained to be. As you move forward from this moment, I want you to consider a question. What is the one false map or limiting belief that you are consciously choosing to let go of as you step fully into this new frequency? Your answer is a powerful declaration to yourself and to the universe. Your time of questioning is completing itself. Your time of knowing is beginning. Trust the process. Trust yourself. You are exactly where you need to be. I wish you profound health, clarity, and courage on the incredible journey ahead. If this message has resonated with you, if it felt like coming home, then I invite you to subscribe to the channel. Do it not just to consume more content, but as a conscious act of participation, a way of telling yourself and the collective field that you are choosing to stay connected to this frequency, to this conversation, and to the powerful shift that is happening through all of us.